Hello and welcome to episode 6 of A Drum Corps Fan's Guide to the World. I am your host, David Vaughn. A very pleasant good day to you all, wherever you may be. Today we are going to be covering the show that happened last night in Lexington, South Carolina, CrownBEAT. It's the first of a two-part series, with the second part coming later in July. There were also two other shows that happened last night in Pasadena, California and Whitewater, Wisconsin. Those shows I was not able to watch because they were not aired, but we will go over the shows, and we're going to talk about the newest and most updated averages, and we're going to talk about an updated way that I'm going to be presenting those to you. I apologize for not getting this out to you last night. We had some severe weather in the area, and it made recording last night impossible. So I apologize for that, but we're getting on it right now. So we're going to go ahead and start with CrownBEAT in Lexington, South Carolina. A record show out there last night as far as attendance, and they had Steve Rondinero doing the public address, and so it made it that much better. And anytime Rondo shows up, you know it's going to be a good time, and it was, corny jokes and all. The first corps to perform yesterday was Heatwave in open class. It's the first time that we've gotten to see them this year, and their show when October goes. They started out with some electronic difficulties, but they were able to get through that, and the show went on. They have about 55 members in total. Their interest was strong, a little bit too strong. They tried to fill the entire stadium with such a small corps. Like we talked about, that tends to happen a lot of times with these smaller open class corps, is they get it in their head that, oh, this is a huge stadium, we're a small corps, we have to fill it up. And what happens then is they overplay, we go flat. Terrific battery feature by them going out of the intro into the first movement. The upper brass really kind of seemed to be struggling to find their footing kind of throughout. The baritones had fantastic sound throughout, and I was watching these guys thinking, man, in a few years y'all are going to be pretty stinking good. Something that I did note, these performers were out there, they were working their butts off, they were working so hard, and I suspect, again, much like many of the smaller open class corps, I suspect they're younger. And I think nerves may have just gotten a bit to them. Like I said, it was their first show. But they were out there and they were performing, and they deserved all the applause that they got just for that. They did get a warm reception from the audience. They had a very nice staccato passage followed by a Chalorando eighth notes in the contras going into a full brass entrance. And that was really nice because it was just like it showed controlled, disciplined playing, good execution. It was really good. As they were settling into their performance there in the second section, there was a bass and snare feature in that second section that didn't quite land, just like everyone else. It's going to. It just didn't hit right now, but it'll be okay. It'll get there. They had a terrific mellophone solo in the ballad. There were. I'll tell you what. There were a lot of things in this show that were good, and that were, that I could reach out and grab and say, hey, this is something definitely worth building on. And that was one of those things. Again, it's obvious this is a young ensemble. And the thing with young ensembles is they always follow a pattern. And it's the same pattern. So they come out punching above their weight, ready to take on all comers. Like they're ready to just go, and then they get beaten and their confidence gets shaken and they start to decline a little bit. And then finally, they find their identity and they start rocking out. And the key to all of this is getting past steps 1 and 2 as quickly as possible. These guys opted for kind of a nice, gentle ending, which for a small corps, it's a good way to go. I liked it. I liked their show. I liked the look. Their sound issues that they had are issues that are fixable, that I anticipate getting much better throughout the season. I'm eager to see where they go. They've now taken the hardest step, and that's the first one. And they did it. They did it just fine. So well done to Heatwave. I was glad to see you guys. Look forward to seeing all of you in Indianapolis. It's going to be good. You guys are going to. I think you guys will probably make finals for the open class, and then we'll get to see you on night one in the DCI prelims. So well done to Heatwave. That was enjoyable. I like. The next corps to perform were Spartans and their show Surreal. We talked about them the other day, so I'm just going to kind of glance over these. The very nice opening statement, great balance and blend, as well as really good power. Their technical passage was very, very well done. Just fantastic. They went with a Spanish theme, kind of, in the opener that kind of permeated throughout the show. And I'm always a fan of that because it makes you sound bigger than you are. Plus, it just sounds cool. And when you record like Spartans that are already kind of upper echelon, excuse me, um, you're not going to go wrong with it. Madison Scouts has built an entire reputation on it. So, there's nothing wrong with that. There's just a touch of phasing this time between the brass and the front ensemble toward the end of the ballad, uh, followed by a couple of slight intonation issues. These are things that are easily corrected, and it sounded like the intonation issues got corrected during the performance. I'm not sure if it was the feed on flow marching or if it was the actual blend, but the front ensemble was drowning out the brass toward the end of movement 3. It was hard to hear the brass because the front ensemble was so boomy. And that's the problem with not being able to watch all of these shows in person, is it is really hard to get a gauge on things like that. You can generally tell if there's bad balance within the brass and within the front ensemble, but it's hard to tell if there's bad balance between the brass and the front ensemble, just because it's hard to know the mixing and all the processes and everything that's going on there. I'm still not a huge fan of the sudden ending of the show. It feels like there should be something before that, and I'm guessing there's gonna be, just because the ending is so abrupt and sudden. Like I said the other day, it feels like someone on an old DVD just hit skip scene and you get the end. And I feel like there's going to be something added in there just because it's odd. And it's not apparent that it's the end of the show. Rephrase. The very last note is apparent that it's the end of the show, but there's going into it, you don't know the end is coming. So I suspect that there's something else in the works for them. It definitely a top 3 open class core. And I would say they have an outside shot at a semifinal appearance in the World Class Championships. They're top notch. They're good. The next core we got to see, and this one made me smile so big, was Spirit of Atlanta, and their show entitled Up, Down, and All Around. And Spirit has always been a very well received core, very popular. And you could tell that people were really, like, genuinely happy to see them. It was Carolina Crown's home show, and I think Spirit got a bigger reaction than Crown did. The opening set that they do has an up arrow, a down arrow, and a circle arrow. Appropriate, you know. Um, their welcome back. Their here we are, we're back, was a sustained mellophone hit followed by a tremendous brass crescendo, and it was a fantastic statement. And it was, I mean, you could feel it. You could feel the energy coming from it. And what I noted immediately was you could tell they were so, like, when they hit that first chord, it was like, we're glad to be back, and now we're here to do a job. And last night, not only did they perform a show, they made a statement. And the statement was, we're here to stay, guys. Um, there was a very nice and big low brass sound in movement one. Good technical mallet passage, controlled power, and again, they're announcing their return in a huge way. I'll tell you, there's some really nice piano work to start the ballad, followed by some great accenting mallet runs. It was a really nice keyboard piano feature. My big takeaways from this were that they have missed the activity spirit, and the activity has missed them. Spirit of Atlanta are always a crowd pleaser, and they they were appreciated tonight, or last night rather. Um, they made an unbelievable statement coming back from the verge of death, and they just stomped their foot on that field and said, "We're here," and it was fantastic. I was so happy to see them, and exceedingly happy that they got the job done. They did very, very well. I was very happy for them. I don't think there's any question. There may have been some questions as to whether or not how they were going to do, how they were going to be. There's no more questions on how they're going to be. They're going to be just fine. And then I would hate to be the core that followed them. And but the core that did follow them were Music City, and their show Violent Delights arose and its thorns. It was a much more focused and controlled initial hit tonight. All three elements locked in to the introductory statement. Brass percussion guard. It was locked in. It was good. The flugelhorn euphonium duet was terrific, and the balance was great. It was nice. I love their energy that they brought, and they were bringing it. They were coming with it, and I feel like some of that energy that Spirit brought just kind of just resonated and was residual left on the field because Music City picked up on some of that. The brass was tight, good articulation, better tuning. Um, the balance in the ballad was beautiful. It really was. Uh, they do need to watch out. They do a step halt toward the end of the ballad. It didn't quite hit, and it's an important moment in the ballad. It didn't quite get nailed, and so that's something that they'll need to make sure and make an area of focus. Because if they have that hit and you've still got people moving around, it loses some of the effect. The battery feature in Paint It Black that also serves as a meter change for the core was great. It was awesome. It was cool. And I miss that. I mean, I remember the battery feature, but I didn't remember that battery feature also serving as a meter change. So that was cool. And then they just took it on home from there. It was great. They did well. They did better, and so I appreciated that. I was glad to see them. Overall, just top to bottom, it was a fun show last night. It was good. The next quarter performed were the Cadets and their show Atlas Rising. So right off the bat, the uniforms that I saw the other day are their uniforms. They are not bad weather uniforms. That's okay. Not my favorite. Not mad at them. That's okay. Tremendous start. Tremendous start. The articulation passage in the second movement. Holy cow. It's so good. And I love that everyone seems to be doing these. this year. It's it's a lot of fun to hear, and it's impressive. And so like it's impressive on a large scale. And so like I'm digging it. It's not uncommon to see these like solos or duets, but to have entire brass ensembles doing them, it's rather impressive. I like it. The trumpet solo to start the ballad is so good. It's an emotive ballad across the board. The guard in the ballad was just a little bit off last night. Nothing major, um, you know. And this is, I think, a perfect evidence of the case order of proficiency. The battery's going to hit their, or the percussion's going to hit their stuff, and then brass, and then the guard. I think the guard is just that much off. Uh, Nothing to stress over if you're a Cadets fan, member, parent. Nothing to stress over whatsoever. There's a very cool visual between the fourth and fifth movements after that high energy fourth movement that I guess I hadn't caught up to this point, but it was pretty cool. There are elements of this show that I don't necessarily care for, but I do feel like in person it's going to be much more impressive. And the end of the show is just power upon power upon power upon power, which in a show about one of the Greek titans makes sense. And given that it's the Cadets, it also makes sense. It was good. It was good. It was well done. You could definitely see a lot of these cores starting to round into form. The next core to perform were the Bluecoats and their show, The Garden of Love. By the way, those of you that caught my last show, I got one-sided notes today. I learned my lesson. So yay! It's still a very cool, almost ethereal introduction until the brass line hits in full, then a terrific brass hit. So it's cool. I'm still not a fan of all of the movement, like the choreo and the second movement. The percussion's terrific. But having said that, let there be no doubting the talent of this group. Is it enough to be top three? I don't know. This is such a tough year. I think they'll be top four, but I don't know if they're going to be top three because the way that Blue Devils, Boston, and Crown are going, it's going to be hard to crack that. So I just don't know. We're starting to have kind of this little peloton of four cores separate from the rest of the group. And so you knew it was going to happen at some point. You knew it wasn't going to be like this logjam of 8 or 9 cores at the top for very long. And that has borne out. The trombone solo in the ballad is just so cool. And the trumpet solo is equally interesting. It's really it's cool. It's just really the only way I can think to describe it. There's kind of these interesting looming headless figures walking to the forefront at the end of the ballad. I'm trying to think of how to describe them in a way that anyone would understand without making some obscure science fiction reference. They look like one of the characters from a TV show called Babylon 5. It's just kind of this gigantic square-shouldered thing. And that's what these look like. I find them interesting. I don't know what they have to do with anything, but I find them interesting because in the closer, they're dancing, these headless figures. So it's kind of fun. It's like kind of like a mascot almost, but not. Anyway, they're fun. There's going into in the fourth movement, leading it off. There's these like blasting splatty trombones that lead to this super heavy fourth movement, and I love it. This is a case where overplaying is okay because it fits stylistically, and it's supposed to. Plus, they don't go out of tune, so that helps. Um, their balance was all off from what I was hearing. I'm gonna assume it was the feet because there's no way the Bluecoats were that far off. There's no way. Um, there's this 1, a 2 and a 3, a 4 and a 1, a 2 and a 3, a 4 and a 1, a 2 and a 3, a 4 and a 1. That it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes with the trumpets. Just this ostinato pattern, very Shostakovich-y. Like if you listen to Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony in the fourth movement, the trumpets have this thing where they just do this for like 5 minutes. Now they don't go 5 minutes with it. But it's very cool. Like they don't change pitch, but the melody goes around them, and it's neat. It draws a really cool picture. I like it. The closer is such high energy, and it's an entertaining show. I can't wait to see kind of where it rates in the grand scheme once all the cores start getting together. I can't wait to see where that one rates because it's going to be fun. And the final core to perform for the evening were Carolina Crown and their show, The Round Table Echoes of Camelot. As we've come to expect, the opening statement was masterfully done. The battery feature, followed by the triplets and the brass, were great in the second movement. It was fantastic. Interestingly, and this is maybe one of the first actual critiques that I've had of them. An area that they might stand some growth is in the portrayal of King Arthur. As if you're familiar with the story of King Arthur, he was known for humility, being a humble leader, and in this portrayal, he's anything but. And that's fine. I doubt anyone's paying that much attention to it. There's not going to be a fan in the stands or a judge on the field that's going to be like, King Arthur isn't arrogant. There's not going to be, and I'm not saying that the person that is portraying King Arthur is arrogant. I'm just saying the person that portrays King Arthur is portraying them very much as look at me, look at me. And that was not how King Arthur was. I don't know really, though, in the nature of drum corps and in the nature of what they're doing, if there's anything they can do about it. I'm not suggesting they change anything. I'm just saying the portrayal is interesting. But that's all. That's all. And again, how much does my opinion matter in this? None whatsoever. None whatsoever. I just thought it was interesting. The ballad leading into the fourth movement is very, very good. This is a very good ballad. Effective. I missed it up until I keep catching, and this is why I watch these shows over and over and over again. Effective use of herald trumpets in the closer, or leading into the closer, and those things are not light. If you're not familiar with playing a herald trumpet, those things are not light because the bell comes out so far, it throws off your center of gravity, and they're hard to hold up. They are. And but they use them effectively, and it's pretty neat to see them in a show like this. If you're ever going to use them in drum corps, the last corps that I remember using them was Phantom Regiment in 2008 with Spartacus. This is the last time I remember seeing them on the field. That doesn't mean that is the last time. This is the last time I remember seeing them. Really, for the first time tonight, or last night rather, I was noting issues with people not getting to their sets on time after the sustained note in the closer. I'm going to keep an eye on that one. I haven't been looking for it. My eyes have been wandering elsewhere. I'll keep an eye on that one and see if that's one where there have been consistent misses or if it was just a one-off. Once again, a terrific showing. They are going to be top three. They may well be top one. I don't know. I really do think it's a toss up between the top three, and I think they're in that conversation. So, excuse me. So my results for the evening were as follows. Um, in open class, I had Spartans winning all the captions: outstanding brass, outstanding percussion, outstanding guard, outstanding general effect. And then I had Heatwave in second place and Spartans in first. And then in world class, I had outstanding brass going to Carolina Crown, outstanding percussion going to the Cadets, outstanding color guard going to the Bluecoats, and general effect going to Carolina Crown. And then I had Music City in fifth, Spirit of Atlanta in fourth, Cadets in third, Bluecoats in second, and Crown in first. The DCI results were fairly close to that, actually. They had Heatwave in second with a score of 53.45, and Spartans in second with a score of 63.35, so a 10-point difference between the two. That was probably about right. In world class, in fifth place, Music City with a score of 68. Spirit of Atlanta in fourth with a score of 70.50, so coming right out of the gate with breaking 70 is good. The Cadets were in third place with a score of 76.45, so a pretty wide gap there, and I would agree with that. And then another pretty wide gap, and you have the Bluecoats in second with a score of 81.25, and then Carolina Crown in first with a score of 81.70. I didn't think it was that close. I thought Crown blew the socks off of everybody. But so I guess that does kind of answer the question. I guess Bluecoats are definitely in that peloton of four that are starting to separate from everybody else. There were two other shows that happened as well, and we're just going to kind of go over those scores that they had. The DCI Whitewater Classic in Whitewater, Wisconsin. They had 2 open class and 9 world class cores, and they all performed last night as well, except for we did have a newcomer in open class. So in second place in open class were Colt Cadets with a score 54.10. And then River City Rhythm made their first appearance of the season as well, and they are in first place with a score 58.20. So River City Rhythm is now in the game, and they have entered the chat. In world class, ninth place, Genesis with a score of 66.45, so a couple of points improvement for them. Crossman in eighth with a score of 70.95. And I don't know if they did it on purpose or not, but for those of you familiar with San Antonio, in the city of San Antonio, everything is silver and black themed. A lot of it because of the San Antonio Spurs. Well, the Crossmen are red and black, but this year their uniforms are silver and black. I wonder if it was a nod to the city of San Antonio, or if they just did it just because. Because their show could have as effectively been done with red and black as it is silver and black. So, I don't know. One of the great mysteries of the world. We'll never know. In seventh place were the Madison Scouts with a score of 71.85, and they are in danger of kind of falling into that lower level. And you hate to see it, but it tends to happen this time of year every year. Because now there's a pretty wide gap, and in sixth place were the Colts with a score of 75.1. Then you have fifth place with the Troopers with a score of 75.95. Blue Stars in fourth with a score of 77.05. Cavaliers in third with a score of 77.65. So all of those cores are starting to inch their way up now. Second place were Phantom Regiment with a score of 80, so they crack 80 for the first time. Do Phantom Regiment. And then Boston Crusaders First place with a score of 82.55. This is closer. This is closer. Because I've said all along that Boston and Phantom were not 4 points better, or Boston and Crown were not 4 points better than Phantom Regiment. Well, Boston tonight were 2 points better than Phantom, and Crown was 1.7 better. This fits. And if Phantom is closing that gap, if they are actually closing that gap, watch out, because that's what happened in 08. They were like 4th place, 5th place all season long, all the way up to prelims. And then we all remember what happened in 08. I know Blue Devils fans would like to forget, but we all know what happened in 08. And so if Phantom is actually closing that gap, and as I'm looking at it, they are, it's going to be a lot of fun in Indianapolis, and I cannot wait to see what happens. And the other show for the evening was the Drum Corps at the Rose Bowl. What more iconic venue can you have than the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California? It was fantastic. The results from that show, there were 4 open class and 5 world class corps. In 4th place, we had Vessel with a score of 56.70. 3rd place was Impulse with a score of 59.15. And I had to do a double take on this next one. It blew my mind. Golden Empire in 2nd place with a score of 60.85. They jumped 7 points from their last show. I had to go back and look at that again. But yeah, they jumped 7 points in one show. They do that a couple times. Man, that's impressive. 1 or 2 points a show is pretty stinking good. You start jumping 7 points in a chunk. Yeah. It's that good. And then in world class, we had a tie for 4th place. Actually, the Academy and Pacific Crest each tied with a score of 71.1. So both of them in the 70s now. Blue Knights in 3rd place with a score of 72.45. And that tracks. They have a pretty good show. And then a wide margin in the Mandarins in 2nd place with a score of 78.05. And then another wide margin in the Blue Devils in 1st place with a score of 84.1, which is a season high in all of DCI. So 84.1. So now we're getting to the point where we're going to start seeing corps flirting with that magic number of 90. And so I figure about the time we get, I figure San Antonio will be the first time that we see anyone hit 90. But we may have multiple corps hit 90. Given that just last night, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we had 4 corps hit 80 just last night. So, and so yeah, it's going to be an exciting end to the season. I really can't wait. Okay, so I'm revisiting the way I'm doing ranking or the averages, because what's happening is we have corps that are being punished for performing more. You have corps that are coming in late into the game and their first show is a 78 or a 79. And then you had corps coming in, early on in the game that their first scores were 69 and 70. And so you have, for instance, you have a corps like Phantom Regiment whose average score is 75.4. And then you have a corps like cadets who are significantly lower than them, like on the ladder of things. They've only performed 3 shows and their average is 75. So, I mean, and I'll tell you, Blue Stars is a perfect example. Blue Stars Overall average is 73.167. The Blue Knights are 72.175. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give averages based on their last three performances. And then I'm going to revamp how I do the power rankings, and I'll talk about that next week. Okay, so in open class, with our updated averages, with all the shows in, the first place right now with the top average are the Blue Devils with an average of 82.033. And that's pretty impressive. Next are Boston Crusaders in second with a score of 81.2, average score of 81.2. Third are Blue Coats with an average of 80.55. They've only done two shows, so that may be a little bit skewed. Fourth are Carolina Crown with an average of 79.933, and that will lift very quickly. Fifth are Phantom Regiment with a score of 78.35. See, so they're inching into that. They're less than 4 points off of Blue Devils. So I would put them in that gap. So I would say there's five cores separating themselves. And those five being Phantom Regiment, Carolina Crown, Blue Coats, Boston Crusaders, and Blue Devils. And then there's a little bit of a drop, and there's a 2.5 point gap down to Blue Stars in sixth at 60.017. And then Mandarins at 75.9. Eighth are Cavaliers at 75.833. So they're right there with the Mandarins. Ninth are the Cadets with 74.983. 10th are the Troopers at 74.2. 11th are the Colts with 72.667. And 12th are the Blue Knights with an average of 72.175. And again, they've only performed two shows. So that average may change, but this sounds about right. This sounds about right. Madison Scouts are currently 13th with an average of 70.817. Crossmen are 14th with an average of 70.8. So just 17 thousandths of a point separating Crossmen from Scouts. But they've only performed twice. And then Spirit of Atlanta's only performed once, but they're up there in 15th with an average of 70.5. Then you've got the Academy in 16th with a score of 67.783 average. 17th are Pacific Crest with an average score of 67.75. 18th are Music City with an average of 67.125, but they've only performed twice. And then Genesis are 19th with an average of 65.925, and again, they've performed twice. So that's kind of where we sit, and Jersey Surf and Seattle Cascades have yet to perform. In open class, here's where things have changed. Gold are sitting in first with an average over their last three of 63.717. Blue Devils B are second with an average of 63.1. And remember, they're not going to go to finals this year. So Gold is kind of running away with it right now. And Gold own the high score for the season in open class with a 65.75 last night. Third place are Spartans with an average of 62.35. Fourth are Golden Empire with an average of 58.4. Fifth are River City Rhythm with an average of 58.2. Impulse, and it was Impulse, it wasn't Golden Empire, it was Impulse that jumped 7 points in their last show. So Impulse are sixth with an average in their last three of 54.667. Vessel are seventh with an average of 54.417, so that's tight. Heat Wave are eighth with an average of 53.45, but they've only performed once. 7th Regiment are ninth with an average of 53.225. And again, they've performed twice. 10th are Colt Cadets with an average of 52.917. And 11th are Blue Devils C with an average of 48.975, and they've performed twice. Still to perform for open class are Columbians, Guardians, Les Stentors, Raiders, Southwind, and the Battalion. So these numbers are going to jostle as well. So the corps that maybe need to worry a little bit about making finals for open class are 7th Regiment, Colt Cadets, I would say Blue Devils C, but they're not going, and Heat Wave. I think if they don't step it up, they're going to be watching from the sidelines for open class finals. And that's the episode. I want to thank all of you so much for joining us today. I want you to take a second, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, hit the notification button. If you like what we're doing, let us know. If you don't like what we're doing, let us know. Like I always say, you know, if I don't know something's broken, I can't fix it. I try to respond to every comment that I get. Let me know what you think. Let's talk about what we talked about today. I'm super excited. We are going to be doing an interview this evening with Misty Olmstead, the director of Northern Lights Drum and Bugle Corps. They're a sound sport corps out of Michigan, and I am excited for that. It'll be the first interview that we've done here on the show, and then we're going to have more reviews this evening. So it's going to be a fun evening. It's going to be a full evening, and I can't wait for it. Until next time, I'm David Vaughn, reminding you that no amount of success can compensate for failure in the home. Make sure that your family knows each and every day just how much you love them. And until next time, remember, this is a Drum Corps Fan's Guide to the World. We're just living in it. Take care and God bless.